This is problem number 1 from the 2-5 Study Guide and Intervention practice sheet. 2-5 Study Guide and Intervention. And let's just take a look at this. This is another one of these piecewise defined functions. And we'll just go through them one at a time. I've got them color-coded here. And let's take a look at what this first piece looks like. It's a line, y equals x plus 2. So it would start here at 2 on the y-axis, and it has a slope of positive 1. But I notice that this particular line is only going to be defined for x values that are less than 0. So that means that anything, here's where x is 0, anything going this way, since it says less than, the line will not show. So we don't really need to make any points going to the right of this red line. Everything is going to the left where x is pointing to the negatives. Alright, so and at that point, at this y-intercept, since x cannot equal 0, it has to be less than, we're going to make an open circle. And we'll draw our line from that point. Okay. So it looks like this. From this open circle, through those lines we've drawn, and then just extend it out. And there's the line f of x is x plus 2, but only for x values that are less than 0. Alright, so now let's look at the blue. And that's a line also that has a y-intercept of 5. It has a slope of 2. So we could do up 2, right 1. We could do up 2, right 1 again. And there's a those 3 points on this particular line, but this particular line we're only going to show x values that are between 0 and 2, and we're going to include 0 and 2. So here is where x is 0 on this line. Here is where x is 2 on this line. And since both of those are included, we're going to make sure they're solid. And this is just going to be a little segment connecting those two outside points. So it'll look like this. Yeah, missed that, so I'll do that again. Okay, so the line for the blue looks like that. And then finally we have this green line represented by this equation. And it has a y-intercept of positive 1. It has a slope of negative 1. So that could be done by doing down 1, right 1, or up 1, left 1. But this particular line we're only going to show for x values that are greater than 2. So don't really need to go this way. I'm just going to keep doing down 1, right 1. Well, here is where x is 2 on this green line. I can't include 2. So at this green dot right here, I'm going to make that an open circle. And then you can keep on making some other dots going this direction. The line would continue on going this way. As x gets bigger than 2, the line will just keep on continuing on that direction. So let's draw the green line. So it starts at 2, not including 2. Let's change the color. And it looks like that. Okay, so we have the 3 pieces, and now let's work on the domain and range. Alright, so for domain, you're thinking this way. Let me erase these other green dots. I don't need those. we are thinking this way, like we're looking along the x-axis. Remember, we associate the word domain with x coordinates. And you're trying to think of x coordinates that are being used in the combination of these three graphs. If you put them all together, if you made a collection or a list of all the x coordinates being used by each, and we put all those together, what would those numbers be? Well, for the red, and you might think about doing this, the red basically starts here at 0 and covers all of these x numbers, everything going to the left. That's the way this line is pointing. It's just going to keep going that way. So every number less than 0 would be taken up by the red. The blue is going to take 0, which the red did not. It'll take 0, and it will stop at 2, and it will take all the numbers in between. Alright, so the red, you can see all the x-axis, x-coordinates that are taken. The blue, these are the x-coordinates that are involved with that graph. The green is going to take all of the ones from 2 to the right and then extend to the right, because that's the way the graph is heading. So if you take all the parts together, the red, the blue, and the green, you're essentially describing every single number there is. And so that's why for the domain we'll state it as x, such that we have all real numbers. Alright, so we're going to do that same idea with the range. Okay, and if it helps to just mark off the y-axis according to how the graph runs, how each piece runs, then if that helps you until you get used to this, let's take this blue section. Now remember, range is associated with the y-axis, or we're trying to list all of the y coordinates that are involved in the collection of all of these graphs. Alright, so let's just mark off the y-axis pertaining to each part. So here's the blue. It's using those y numbers. Okay, from 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, maybe just put some numbers out here. So from y is 5 to y is 9, those are being used by this blue section. Let's take a look at the red. If we were just to take this red graph and parallel it to the y-axis, it would give us a better idea. It's continuing down forever and ever, and that's the way this y-axis runs forever and ever. So I'm going to color in the part of the y-axis to represent the y numbers that are being taken by the red, and it's essentially everything below negative or positive 2. It's bad coloring, but I think you get the idea. Okay, so this red line is going to utilize every single one of these y numbers. That's what range is referring to. Well, the green line, it's kind of repetitious, because it's just going to use all of these. They're already taken. We'll go ahead and color. So basically what I've done here is I've colored out for us a color description of the range. Everything that's colored, whether it's one color or two, doesn't matter. Everything that's colored will be part of our range. So I'm going to start with this part. Everything less than 2, now we're not including 2 because that's an open circle, but everything less than 2 will be part of our range. So range, in this case, we're dealing with a function f of x. So we'll state it like this: any y, or f of x, less than 2 will be part of our range. Okay? And now we've got to include, we have a little gap here of numbers that are not involved in the range. So let's jump up here and include these. Another part of another set of numbers in the range will be these numbers from 5 to 9. So we can state that like this. Whenever you're doing between two numbers, just put the small number first. Since we are including 5 and 9, since these are solids, we need to do or equal to, and then put the big number last. So these two together, these two statements together, these two inequalities combined represent the range. So I hope that helps, and it takes a little practice, especially with this domain range idea, but you might consider just shading off part of the y-axis like I've done to correspond to the particular graphs that you've drawn. That might help you to kind of get a picture. You may not always have to do that, but maybe in the beginning it may help. So if you have any other questions, let me know.